The Chevrolet Silverado HD is undeniably the best middle ground in the world of heavy-duty pickup trucks. With its boyishly handsome interior, solid capability, and good comfort levels, it's a perfect compromise between the comfortable Ram 2500/3500 and the work-oriented Super Duty. However, even it wasn't without its faults, many of which drew a lot of buyers away from it and towards the other two options. In today's video, we'll be checking out if the 2025 Chevrolet Silverado HD fixes the 4 worst flaws of the previous model. Number 4. Mediocre off-road performance. One of the most disappointing things about the Chevrolet Silverado HD was how uninspiring it was off-road. You see, even after last year's refresh, the Silverado HD has been very lacking in terms of off-road trims, as only the higher-end models like the ZR2 offered any real capability. As a result, if you were on the market for a Silverado HD that had some off-road ability, you were either forced to drop $70K plus on it or just look otherwise. Most of us that need a do-it-all workhorse expected the introduction of a more affordable alternative to the ZR2, with the introduction of the redesign, as the ZR2 is, to be honest, more of a poser's vehicle than a real manly man's pickup truck. Thankfully though, the 2025 model year finally fixes this issue, as we now have a choice of a much more affordable off-road trim. You see, as of the 2025 model year, you'll now be able to add an optional Trail Boss package. This new package adds off-road suspension to the equation, which includes Z71 shocks and suspension. In addition, you also get unique blacked out 20-inch wheels that are complemented by off-road ready Goodrich KO3 tires. You also get some exciting cosmetics to differentiate your Trail Boss Silverado HD from other, more peasantly LTs, such as blacked out front and rear bumpers, trim pieces, as well as red tow hooks. In addition, you can also option this out with the mid-range LTZ trim, which will allow you to get a decently equipped pickup truck that is also very capable off-road. As for the interior changes, both the Trail Boss equipped LT and LTZ trims get some cosmetics, such as a differently accented interior, embroidered headrests, and some trim pieces that remind you you're in an off-road ready truck. Sure, we're still a bit bitter that Chevy took this long to introduce a trim like this one. However, you know what they say, better late than never. Number 3. Lackluster standard features. Again, one of the most disappointing things about the Chevrolet Silverado HD was how incredibly under-equipped it was. And by under-equipped, we mean the entire range. Seriously, imagine paying $70,000 for a ZR2 and not getting parking sensors. Can you imagine paying for parking sensors on a 21-foot long borderline luxury pickup truck? And you know what's even worse? You couldn't even option them for the lower end models. You were practically stuck driving a literal monster truck and praying to God that you don't nick it, or, run over a smaller truck while reversing. And the worst part of this is the fact that the Silverado HD is the most expensive pickup truck in its segment, save for its GMC twin. Well, thankfully, Chevy officials and engineers came to their senses, and for the 2025 model year, these problems have been solved. The ZR2 finally gets parking sensors as standard, just as it should have been from the beginning. The entry-level WT, Custom, and LT also get them as an optional extra. That said, the WT and Custom still get the same old dated interior that's been used in the pre-facelift model, and that's simply laughable compared to what the Super Duty and the Ram 1500 offer. The Super Duty's interior has a better design, and the heavy-duty Ram is noticeably built better. Every trim since the LT onwards gets a cool modern interior. However, it's a shame that Chevy didn't introduce the facelifted Captain to the entry-level models. On the other end of the echelon, the top-of-the-line High Country also gets some nice features as standard from now on, such as adaptive cruise control. Again, something that should have been present from the get-go. But number 2, mediocre towing capacity. One of the biggest disappointments Chevy Silverado HD owners and lovers keep encountering is the fact that it isn't particularly potent when it comes down to the towing capacity. Unfortunately, Chevrolet has not changed this for the 2025 model year, leaving the Silverado HD the weakest entry in this regard amongst its peers. You see, the 2500 HD, outfitted with a standard 6.6-liter gas V8 engine, can tow up to 16,000 pounds conventionally, which is 1,200 pounds less than the 7.3-liter F250 Super Duty. The Ram 2500 6.4-liter Hemi is even better in this regard, being able to tow up to 17,730 pounds. The diesel engine fares a bit better, being able to tow up to 20,000 pounds conventionally, which is pretty much on par with Ram's 6.7-liter 6-cylinder Cummins diesel. while falling some 2,000 pounds short of the F-250's 6.7-liter Powerstroke V8. However, once you start comparing the 3500 HD to its rivals, things take a turn for the worse. The Ram 3500 outfitted with a diesel engine can tow up to 37,090 pounds, which is around 1,000 pounds more than the Silverado HD. However, comparing it to Ford's top-of-the-line version, which has a maximum towing capacity of 40,000 pounds, you realize how weak the towing capacity is on the Silverado HD. The payload capacity is a bit better. The 2500 HD has a maximum payload capacity of 3,850 pounds, which is only 150 pounds less than the Ram 2500, and roughly 500 pounds less than the F-250 Super Duty. The 3500 HD story is similar, with its maximum payload capacity being only 500 pounds less than Ford's offering, and around 250 pounds less than the Ram 3500. Still, even with this in mind, I have to say that the Chevrolet Silverado HD is by far the worst truck in its segment in terms of being a workhorse, but still, it should be more than enough for most people. Number 1. Pricing is abnormally high. By far, the biggest issue that the Silverado HD encountered was the fact that it was by far the most expensive truck amongst the big three at the lower end of the trim levels, which, as we've already established, is its weak point. In addition, its mid and high trim levels were also very similarly priced to its rivals, which is very weird seeing how both the heavy-duty Ram and the Ford Super Duty are more focused and generally better vehicles. This is especially true for the Ram, which is more capable, more comfortable, and better built than it. On the flip side, the Super Duty is a much more modern vehicle, seeing how it sits on a 2-year-old platform, whereas the Silverado HD's current iteration has been around for more than half a decade. Well, as of the 2025 model year, things will have changed a bit. You see, despite still being an expensive truck, the Silverado HD will benefit from the fact that the Ram's offering will be going through a redesign, which means that it'll get an exponential price increase. Now, the heavy-duty Ram has always been a more expensive truck for the top-of-the-line models. However, it will now also be a couple of grand more in terms of lower-end pricing, making the Silverado HD a pretty good proposition compared to it. This is especially true if you take into consideration that you'll probably be able to kit out the mid-range LTZ with the Trail Boss package, and you'll still save a few bucks compared to a basic Laramie, which is expected to start at $65,000 plus. The top-of-the-line High Country will also be some 8 to 10 grand cheaper than the Ram's Limited, which is honestly a pretty good deal, even though you'll lose a bit of comfort and interior quality for the money. The Super Duty will most likely remain unchanged for the 2025 model year. However, it'll go through an expected price increase, which will put it neck to neck with the Super Duty. And although its base model will still represent a much better value than the entry-level Silverado, the mid-range models will not be that clear-cut. You see, the Super Duty will offer more practicality and better capabilities. However, it will also offer a noticeably rougher ride, as well as a, well, very dated-looking interior. Not to mention that the current Lariat is around $4,000 more expensive than the equivalent LTZ, giving you a lot of play to kit out the Silverado more to your liking. As a result, even though it might not be as good on the road as the Ram, as well as being much less capable than the Super Duty, the Silverado HD still retains its position as a good compromise between them both. Even though some of its glaring issues remain, it will become an even better deal once the 2025 model year for both of its rivals hits the market.